A few years later, a skeleton was found in the river, and people believed they had actually found the body of Richard III. By the 21st century, the actual whereabouts of the king were a complete mystery. The mayor's mansion that once marked his grave was long gone, and the original Greyfriars Church was now buried under several layers of buildings. In order to find Richard III, the search team had to go back through the history books and figure out what really happened after he was buried. They started looking into John Speed's story of Richard being buried under the bridge, and that's when they came across something really interesting. John had traveled to Leicester in 1611 to look for Richard's grave and to make a detailed map of the city. But when he got there, all he found was an overgrown field and no monument. The search team took a closer look at his map, and they realized that the Greyfriars Church had been drawn in the wrong location, and it had actually been drawn in the location of the Blackfriars Church. Speed had clearly gone to the wrong church, and that's why he didn't find a grave. If he had gone to the right place, he would have come across the mayor's mansion with a monument marking where Richard lay. Since he hadn't found a grave, he invented the story of Richard being buried under the bridge. This was most likely inspired by the real story of a local priest who actually was dug up and thrown in the river years before. All of this proved that Speed's story was actually false, and the team could focus their efforts on looking for the Greyfriars Church. But any evidence of the church had long since been covered by buildings, and so finding it would be a huge challenge. The earliest map that showed any detail was from 1741, and it showed the Greyfriars area, which at that point contained the mayor's mansion and the surrounding gardens. The monument that once marked Richard's grave would have stood somewhere in this area. By overlaying more modern maps, it showed that a road was eventually built through the area, and today's buildings had been built on top of the gardens. By the 21st century, the Greyfriars area had been almost completely covered by buildings, and the remaining bits of land had been turned into parking lots. In 2005, Philippa Langley, who was leading the research, came to one of these parking lots to investigate. When she was there, she had a strong feeling that she was in the right place. And then, as if by magic, a sign revealed itself. Although this R was obviously just a reserved parking spot, she felt like this was the place to start digging. And so, several years later, a team of archaeologists led by Philippa finally got permission to dig. But they only had enough money to dig up a fraction of the parking lot, and so they had to be very efficient. Churches were typically positioned from east to west, and so they planned to dig 3 trenches that would hopefully overlap with part of the church.